The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Happy morning, students. I hope you all would have got a great day, that is our Children's Day and Diwali together on one single day. And the most important thing is, it was a great day just because it became so memorable that we all could enjoy the most in that particular day. Like we could meet our children. I hope the same happiness that you were carrying in your mind, we teachers were also having it, because not all the children, at least we could meet a group of children, that is around 300 to 400 children in one particular bus route, and could share the happiness and love with them. We could see the happiness that you carry in your face, the feelings that you are having that you are not in the school. It's a great feeling, children, and we really thank the school and principal sir for giving us a wonderful opportunity that this day, November 14, 2020 is really an unforgettable day, because it had marked a remarkable note in everybody's life, because no school has taken such an effort to share the feelings with the children, being a part with the children, being together with the children. So once again, belated Children's Day wishes, because everybody, we miss you children, we miss you a lot, because if you were in the school, the day would have been different, but this became more and more different when we were meeting virtually, right? So thanks to Corona in one way, because such an idea has got sparked in our school principal sir's mind and he made it possible, right? So eagerly waiting to see you directly in a school campus with your colorful expressions, your naughtiness and everything, each and everything that you do, we really enjoy, children. Okay, so now we'll get back into the new topic. The lesson for today is D and F block elements. I've told you, children, we have got started little bit with organic. That is, there are some properties which we were learning about this in the previous classes also. So something in detail that we are going to study in this year. When I say D block elements, when we are discussing D block elements, we study that these are called as transition elements. And the D block elements group starts from 3 to 12, because we know there are around 18 groups. The first two groups belong to S block. Group 6, that is group 13 to group 18 belong to P block, that is 6 groups are there in P block, and 10 groups, that is group 3 to 12 belong to D block. So this is that is 10 groups are present in D block elements. If you see 3D, 4D, 5D, these are the main 3 rows in which D block elements are present. That is, we have scandium, zinc, yttrium, cadmium, lanthanum and mercury. So these are the elements, 10 elements which are belonging to the 3D transition series, 4D transition series and 5D transition series. So these are called as transition elements. Now why they are called as transition elements is because their position is in such a way that they are in between the S block and the P block. That is, we know S and P block together, they are called as representative elements in the periodic table, and this D block is just in between that is, it is in the transition state in between the S block and the P block. So we call them as transition elements. Now what about our F block? After this 3d, 4d, 5d, we have 6d, where the electrons get filled into the d subshells, d orbitals. There comes the 4f and 5f introduction. So this 4f and 5f are called as inner transition elements or F block elements. Now how do we find out? We used to do it in 10th standard. How to find out the block, that is when the last electron enters the particular subshell, that subshell is the block of the element. So if it enters my S subshell, the element belongs to S block. If it enters the P subshell, P block. So when I say D block, here in 3D, 4D, 5D, around 28 elements actually they are present. In this, if you see, the last electron will be entering the d orbital or the d subshell. That's why they are called as d block elements. And in F block elements, the case in such a way that the electrons enters the F subshell. So they are called as F block elements. And this 4F series, they are called as lanthanoids, and the 5F series are called as actinoids. Even this we have learnt in the previous classes. Now what is the definition of a transition element? Whenever there is an incomplete d orbitals, we know d subshell has got around 5 orbitals, out of which we know there can be 10 electrons which are filled in the d subshell. But what happens if there is an incomplete means what? It can be D7, D8, D9. It should not be D10. D10 means it becomes completely filled. So if there is an incomplete d orbitals either in the ground state means it has not lost electrons, neither it has gained electrons. So in such a state, if an element has an incomplete d orbitals or in an oxidation state. What do you mean by oxidation state? For example, chromium 2+. After losing 2 electrons, if it has incomplete d orbital, then definitely those elements are called as transition elements. I hope you are able to understand, children. Any element in its ground state. When I say ground state, it is chromium. It has not lost electrons or neither it has gained electrons. So in this way, if it has incomplete d orbital, it is a transition element. After losing the 2 electrons, even if it has incomplete d orbitals, it is again called as transition elements. So those elements which has incomplete electrons d in the d orbitals, they are called as transition elements. Apart from all the transition elements, zinc, cadmium and mercury has got completely filled d orbitals, that is 3d10, 4d10 and 5d10. They have the d10 configuration, so we call them as completely filled configuration elements, and they do not possess the property of a transition element. Why, children? Because they have completely filled d orbitals. Which are the elements? Zinc, cadmium and mercury. So these 3 elements has completely filled d orbitals, so they don't possess the property of a transition element. Now we will see the general properties, electronic configuration of d block elements. Now we shall see, we saw the position, right? We were seeing that it was placed between the S block and the P block elements, and the electrons were entering the penultimate shell, that is the D, and the outermost S subshell. Now if you see the electronic configuration of D block elements, it is n-1, D 1 to 10 and ns 1 to 2, where n-1 is the inner d orbital which has got 1 to 10 electrons. As we know, the d subshell can take a maximum of 10 electrons. So in this, maximum 10 electrons can be filled at a time. Now if you see ns, it is the outermost subshell and which can take up 1 or 2 electrons. Also we know the S subshell can take maximum 2 electrons. So this n-1d and the ns, that is the innermost d and the outermost s, has got a low energy difference. Because of this low energy difference, there will be a exceptional configuration exhibited by two important elements of the transition metals. These are chromium and copper. Let's see how does it work. Now chromium has an atomic number of 24. So how do we fill it? We fill it according to the increasing energy level. So it becomes 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d4. Since the energy of 4s is less than that of 3d, electrons enter 4s first and then gets into the 3d orbital. But if you see this 4s2, 3d4, what happens is that we have learned the partly filled, that is d5 partly filled or d10 completely filled, d orbitals are more stable. So what happens here? One of the electron from the 4s subshell jumps into the 3d subshell. That is, an electron from 4s jumps into 3d, so it becomes 4s1 and 3d5. So this becomes the exceptional configuration. Till 3p6 there is no change, but here when compared to 3d4 and 3d5, 3d5 it's more stable because it is partly filled. That's why the electrons jump from 4s to 3d. So this becomes an exceptional configuration. If you come to copper, the same story. Copper has an atomic number 29, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d9. But here the same thing, 3d9, you can make it 3d10 to make it more stable. So one electron from 4s enters into the 3d, so it becomes 4s1 and 3d10. This we have learnt in 10th standard, if you remember children. Copper and chromium, why do they show exceptional configuration? Now after all these elements of transition series, zinc, cadmium and mercury, I told you they have completely filled d orbitals. So their configuration is n-1 d10 ns2. It is not 1 to 10 and 1 to 2. Instead we should write n-1 d10 and ns2. So this will be the configuration for zinc, cadmium and mercury. Because of this incomplete d orbitals, that is the energy difference, we know when I say d subshell, it has 5 orbitals. All these orbitals are degenerate, means they possess the same energy. But since the electrons are incompletely filled, because of that incomplete d orbitals, they show catalytic property, and because of more unpaired electrons, they often show paramagnetic behavior. That is, we have already learnt d block elements are catalyst and they exhibit the paramagnetic property. The reason is because they have some unpaired electrons or incomplete electrons in the d orbitals. Now we will be learning about the general properties of the transition elements. General properties of transition elements. First of all, they are metals. They are metals because they lose electrons to get a positive oxidation state, that is becoming a cation. The next one is they are ductile property. You know what is ductile property? That is, they can be made into thin wires. They have a good tensile strength, you can stretch it, elasticity property is there. They are malleable because they can be made into sheets also. They are good thermal and electrical conductors, means they can allow the heat to pass through them. Also they allow the electricity to pass through them. That's why you find wide applications of transition elements in almost all the even home appliances or even outside the industrial purposes. They have a luster, metallic luster, which means they are shiny in nature. They are very hard and low volatility. We know what is volatile. Volatile means escaping tendency, getting changed into vapor form easily. They have low volatility, means they do not form that much easily, they get converted into its vapor form. They show very high melting and boiling point. What could be the reason for this is just because of the participation of n-1d electrons apart from the ns electron in the metal bonding. In the metallic bonding, interatomic metallic bonding, apart from ns electrons, also the n-1 d, that is the electron present in the d orbitals, also get involved in the formation of the bond. That's why they have a very high melting and boiling point. But this melting point gradually increases till d5, that is I can say manganese. They increase till d5 and then they start decreasing with the increase in the atomic number. They have very high enthalpies of atomization. What is enthalpy? Enthalpy is nothing but heat. So, heat of atomization means to form an atom, some energy is required. So, that enthalpy is very high, and it has been said that greater the number of valence electron, stronger will be the resultant bond. The bond formed will be much stronger if the number of valence electrons is higher. So, when you see 3D, 4D and 5D, the subsequent energy level, that is when I say the first series is 3D, the second one is 4D, the last one is 5D. 5D will be having more enthalpy than 4D and 4D will be having more when compared to 3D. So, this will be gradually increasing as we go down the rows. So, this is a basic properties of the D block elements, or when I say transition metals. I will be posting a video also for your better understanding about the general instructions about D block elements. Now, we will have a small look on the atomic sizes of transition elements. We are going to see something related to atomic and ionic radii. See, there is a decrease in the radius with increase in atomic number. This we have been studying even in S and P block elements. When you go across the period, the atomic or ionic size will decrease. It is just because of the shielding effect, or we can say screening effect. This is my nucleus. I have my first shell, this is my second shell, and this is my third shell. But what actually happens is that the outermost electrons which are present here will be shielded by the inner orbitals or inner energy levels. But here in case of D subshell or D block elements, the shielding effect of D electrons is not that effective when compared to S and P block elements. There is an imperfect shielding taking place in the D orbital. So, what happens that since this orbit is not doing any shielding, it is not doing any screening of electrons, these electrons can be easily attracted by the nucleus. So, what happens? The electrostatic attraction between the nucleus and the outermost electron actually increases. If there is a shielding, these electrons will not be attracted to the nucleus. So, the nucleus being positive in charge will not attract the electrons which is present in the outermost shell, because there is a cover or there is a shield which is not allowing this effective nuclear charge to fall upon this electron. But since in D subshell the shielding effect is not that effective, these electrons get attracted to the nucleus. So, what happens? The atomic or the ionic size actually shrinks, or I would say it decreases. So, the ionic radius decreases, and in case of D and F, what happens is that before 5D actually 4F orbital starts getting filled up. The filling of 4F orbitals before the 5D causes a decrease in the atomic size, and that we call it as a lanthanoid contraction. Why this name lanthanoid has come is because the F subshell has to do a shielding effect, but within the same subshell the shielding effect has to be take place. One electron should be shielding the other electron in the same subshell, but compared to 4F, D is much better. So, when the imperfect shielding of the 4F electrons are taking place, that contraction makes, that effect makes the atomic size to shrink, contract. So, that effect we call it as lanthanoid contraction. Lanthanoid series are 4F series, or we can say the F subshells. So, when this is lanthanum is mainly contributing this, so that contraction we call it as lanthanoid contraction, and because of that what happens, the second and third D series, we have 3 D series, the second and third will be having the same radius and they also possess the same physical and chemical property. So what is actually contraction? Contraction is nothing but decrease in size, and that is happening because of the shielding effect. But d orbitals do not do that much shielding effect, but compared to my F, D is much better in the shielding. So such a contraction we call it as the lanthanoid contraction. You have good diagrams given in the textbook. Please refer the graphs and the diagrams when you are seeing these notes or when you are referring the notes, children. Okay. Now we will just start up with the ionization enthalpy and we will stop for today. Okay, we have come to today's last part, that is ionization energy. We have learnt what is ionization energy, that is the energy required to remove the outermost electron from a loosely bounded isolated gaseous atom. So we know across the period ionization energy always increases. It increases just because of a simple reason, there is an effective increase in the nuclear charge. What is effective nuclear charge? That is, because of the electrons getting added to the same shells, the electrons will be attracted to the nucleus present in the center, so the atom actually shrinks. The electrons comes closer to the nucleus. So if the electrons are farly getting attracted to the nucleus, it is difficult to remove the electron. So we need to possess more energy to remove the electron. So that's why we say there is an increase in the ionization energy when you move from left to right. The successive enthalpies does not increase as like that of our main group elements, like the first and second ionization energy for the same element do not increase as like that of our main group elements. Because we know the electrons are taken out first from the outermost 4s, then from the inner 3d orbitals. And if you see the second ionization energy, it actually gradually increases from chromium to copper once it starts losing the 2 electrons. Because when one electron gets loses only, children, it becomes a unipositive ion. So what happens? The nuclear charge actually increases. So again, to remove the second electron, we need more energy. So the second and the third ionization energy gradually increases, and you cannot see more than +2 oxidation state, which is the common oxidation state in the transition series. So these are with respect to the ionization energy. There is a diagram also given, and I will be posting a video with related to this. So with this we will stop today's class, and tomorrow we will be learning about oxidation states, general electrode potentials and chemical reactivity. Okay. So with this, if you have any doubt, kindly call me and clarify your doubts, children. Hope you are on with the syllabus, writing the notes regularly, watching HSS live notes and the solved question papers, which are going to help you for your board exams. Okay. So do take care of your health, drink lot of warm water and eat lot of vitamin C rich foods, and stay home, stay healthy, take care, bye. Periodic table, the transition elements. In the periodic table, we have been learning about periods and groups. There are 18 groups and 7 periods in the periodic table, and we have S, P, D, F as the 4 main blocks in the periodic table. So here in transition elements, we are going to learn about the position of the transition elements in the periodic table. In the blocks, we have the first group, second group, 13th group, 14th group, 15th group, 16th group, 17th group, 18th group as the main block elements of S and P. The transition elements have been placed in between the first, second and the remaining 6 groups of P block, and we have metals in first, second group, here metals, non-metals and semi-metals. Transition elements are around from 3 group to 12 group, and it goes from 4th period to 7th period in the periodic table. There are around 38 elements and they are placed between S and P block, and that's why they are called as transition elements. It starts from the 3D series right from scandium and till zinc, which is belonging to the 3D, that is the first series of transition metals, And in 4D, we have from yttrium to cadmium, which is the 4D series, and in the 5D series, we have hafnium and mercury, which is the 5D series of the transition metals. We have also some of the metals which are placed there with rutherfordium and copernicium, which are placed just below the 3 transition series. Some of the important transition metals which play an important role are titanium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc, silver, platinum, gold and mercury. Transition elements are malleable and they are good conductors of heat and electricity. They have a wide application where iron converted into steel are used for making automobiles like cars and also used in the making of ships. Copper, a very good conductor of heat and electricity, are used in making wires as cables. We have gold and silver which do not corrode easily in air and water, so they are used in the making of jewelry. We have also wide applications where they have been used in printed circuit boards and computer chips. In the periodic table, we have 2 important series, the F block elements which are called as the inner transition elements, which are lanthanides and actinides. It starts from lanthanum, atomic number 57, with lutetium, atomic number 71 being the first row, and actinium with atomic number 89 to lawrencium being the second series. Summary: all elements are arranged according to their atomic numbers and electrons in the periodic table. The elements in group 3 to 12 and period 4 to 7 of the table are transition metals. Lanthanides and actinides are called inner transition elements.